As the Russian violations continue, the EU is soon to vote on the introduction of its 19th package of sanctions on Russia for its aggression in Ukraine. To talk about the new sanctions, if they have a chance of succeeding and how they will affect Europe, I'm joined by Michał Broniatowski, Polish Deputy Minister of Development and Technology. Good evening and welcome to World News Tonight. Thank you for joining.
Good evening. Great to be with you.
Pleasure's all mine. So Friday, September 19th, the EU proposed 19th package of sanctions on Russia to be voted this coming Friday. What do you think are the most severe repercussions for Russia if that package came into force?
Look, this is another powerful package that will limit ability of Russia to continue the war. The squeeze is on. There are a number of measures that will be particularly severe. The few that I would underline is the fact that European Union will limit the time that EU still imports any fuel from Russia, including LNG and oil. The transition periods will be only 6 months long for short-term contracts, and by January 2027, all of the contracts on gas will be gone. The other important aspect of the package will be limits on the so-called shadow fleet that continues to operate across the seas and with Russian oil especially. And that will put a squeeze on the Russian budget that funds the war in Ukraine. So those are some of the main provisions of the package that we are finalizing at the moment.
I would like us to revisit the meeting between President Donald Trump and President Volodymyr Zelensky that took place over 30 minutes ago. Mr. Trump said, I quote, "Viktor Orban is my friend. I think Orban will stop buying Russian oil," end quote. The package has to be voted unanimously by all the member states. Do you think that Donald Trump will be actually capable of speaking to Viktor Orban and convincing him into supporting this package, especially that Mr. Trump actually voiced it very clearly today at the UN that Europe has to put more pressure when it comes to dealing with Russian energy sector?
Look, it's a very clear message from the President of the United States to his close political ally. And I think this message must be heard loud and clear in Budapest. It's a message that also comes very clearly to Budapest from across European capitals. I'm confident that also Hungary will join the fold when it comes to this package. It is helpful to have United States and President Trump personally to make this case very clearly also to the Hungarian government and Prime Minister Orban himself. And yes, I think that's good news. That's something that is again embraced across Europe, and we just need the last member states to get on board of this critical proposal.
So there's also this argument that landlocked countries such as Slovakia and Hungary, they might not have an alternative choice when it comes to dealing with Russia within the energy sector. Do they have an alternative choice? And I mean, do they have a choice, or there perhaps are willing participants when it comes to dealing with Russia as of now? What's your opinion?
I don't want to speak on their behalf, but let's just point to geographic considerations. Slovakia and Hungary are not the only landlocked countries. That there are other countries that are landlocked, and I can maybe bring here an example of the Czech Republic that was able to diversify away from any Russian oil and LNG. So this can be done. EU and EU member states are going to do all we can to make sure that and that everyone has alternatives. Again, Czech Republic found a way. There is really no reason why countries that are in a very similar situation like Slovakia or just a further out Hungary can find a way as well. Again, with the support from the EU, because it's so clear that we all need to get off any energy relationship with Russia, given the murderous use that these funds then get, that they get funded in the war in Ukraine.
I would like us to take a moment to listen to some data that comes from the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air. Quote, despite a range of sanctions and the threat posed by dependence on Russian energy and the third year of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, EU imports of Russian fossil fuels in particular remain largely unchanged, totaling to 21.9 billion euros, a 6% year-on-year drop in value, but merely 1% year-on-year drop in volumes. That's February. Now let's move on to August. The EU was the fourth largest buyer of Russian fossil fuels, accounting for 8%, 1.2 billion euro of Russia's exports revenues from the top 5 importers. The majority of imports, 66%, consisted of LNG and pipeline gas, followed by crude oil at 32%. So the EU plans to introduce the 19th package of sanctions that is going to target these very energy sectors, but it's still largely buying from Russia. So how is this going to change after and if we're going to see that 19th package of sanctions being adopted?
Look, we need to do better, Europe as a whole, right? Poland is actually in a great example of countries that were able to wind off from Russian energy sources, and many others did as well. It was a shock for many of our other European partners and allies when Russia attacked Ukraine and when they cut off their energy transport, and when Europe made it very clear that we need to wind off quickly from Russian energy sources. This 19th package goes another step closer to a full independence from Russian gas and oil eventually as well. So it is a step-by-step process. Some countries are doing great, and here Poland is one of them, while others, especially Hungary, to some extent Slovakia, are lagging behind. But this package will bring us another step closer to the independence that right now also is very much politically supported, as you said. Energy independence from Russia, supported by the United States.
So why do you think that the US is actually quite reluctant, as we've seen based on weeks past, to impose sanctions on Russia? What is Donald Trump actually waiting for?
Look, this is an excellent question it should be directed to American administration and
I suppose so, but I wanted to get your opinion on it.
Sure. I used to be a think tanker and an expert that could speculate at free about the motivations of government officials. I don't have the same leisure and the same freedom that I have right now. I'm not sure if I would fully agree with your statement either. We are seeing pressure coming from the United States. We are talking here about also a nudge to Europe to make sure that we get off of any energy relationship with Russia. But I also see a Russian regime that is absolutely, at this point, ignoring the nudges and pressures and openings that come from across the Atlantic. So it's easier to comment on the reality that we are not seeing the move toward peace or towards ceasefire from the Russian side. In fact, we are seeing an escalation. Today, escalation in Denmark, a few days ago in Estonia, earlier in Romania and Poland. despite the overtures, diplomatic and otherwise, from the White House. So I hope that we see a culmination of these efforts coming from the Russian side, but I'm not holding my breath for the moment.
Now that you mentioned the most recent violations and alleged violations, because we don't have the details as of yet when it comes to Denmark and Norway, the situation of today, we will be reporting more on that. I would like us to listen to a soundbite by Diane Francis, a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. I spoke to her yesterday, and this is what she had to say regarding the situation and the funding of the NATO movements. Let's listen.
Well, I think that not only should they be told point blank that no Russian aircraft should ever invade the airspace of a NATO country, and that they will be warned to get out immediately and if not, shot down. But I think also they should probably charge the Russian government for the cost of scrambling all the jets so far, when all the countries have had to scramble them to get up there to shoo them away. And this includes Poland and Estonia and Romania and all the ones that have had to do this.
So do you think that the EU and NATO members are actually going to take that piece of advice and possibly maybe look into the coffers of the frozen Russian assets stored in Belgium to be able to cover the cost of these actions if we're going to see more violations on the Russian side?
Look, let me start by saying that it's critically important that we finally get to a clear solution when it comes to providing, especially Ukraine, with funds from the frozen Russian assets and assets of the aggressor that is on a daily basis destroying Ukrainian cities, Ukrainian civilians, and Ukrainian economy. We are getting closer. This is clear that we are getting closer. I can't go into too many details, but I'm seeing a forward movement after many months and now years of a debate. But the primary recipient of these funds, not only from when it comes to the percentage points, but actually when it comes to principle, should be Ukraine. Whether NATO charges Russia for those military operations countering Russian drones and less Russian jets, that I like the idea. That's not necessarily where the priority would be at this point. What we clearly are building is both the defense, but also deterrence capability, making it more costly for Russia to continue with their aggressions, hybrid aggressions, and now escalating further and further. The cost of it can be, those are more difficult in security terms rather than in financial terms. I think the Russian assets need to start rebuilding Ukraine cities and Ukrainian industry.
And we're going to put a full stop there. Thank you very much. Michał Broniatowski, Polish Deputy Minister of Development and Technology, was my guest tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so this would be all the latest news for now here on World News Tonight. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska. Thank you very much for joining, and I hope to see you back here on TVP World for more.